Television and film are built on carefully constructed illusions. Writers map out arcs months ahead. Producers plan seasons with precision. Characters fall in and out of love, survive impossible situations, and sometimes die in ways designed to shock or move the audience. But every so often, something happens that no script can prepare for. An actor dies. And in that moment, the entire structure of a story changes. It's no longer just about plot or pacing. It becomes about people, about grief, about respect, about figuring out how to move forward when the person who brought a character to life is suddenly gone. There's no universal rule book for what comes next. Some shows choose to recast, others quietly write the character off. And sometimes the decision is made to let the character die as well, not because it serves the story in the traditional sense, but because it feels like the only honest way forward. These moments stay with audiences for years, not just because of what happens on screen, but because of what they represent behind the scenes. Why shows choose to kill the character? Before looking at specific examples, it helps to understand why this choice is made at all. It's rarely simple, and it's almost never purely creative. Emotional authenticity. When an actor becomes inseparable from a character, replacing them can feel wrong. Not just to the audience, but to the cast and crew who worked alongside them. Letting the character die allows the story to acknowledge the loss instead of pretending nothing has changed. It gives everyone permission to grieve. Audience attachment. Viewers build deep emotional connections over time. In long-running shows especially, characters can feel like part of the family. A sudden recast can break that connection. It reminds the audience that what they're watching is constructed. A meaningful farewell, on the other hand, keeps the emotional bond intact. Narrative integrity. Some characters are so central to a story that replacing them would fundamentally change the tone of the show. In those cases, ending their story can actually preserve the integrity of everything that came before. Respect for the actor. At its core, this decision is often about respect. Continuing a role with a new actor can feel, to some, like erasing the contribution of the original performer. Writing the character out allows the show to honor what that actor created. Television moments that hit the hardest. Cory Monteith as Finn Hudson, Glee. When Cory Monteith died in 2013, it sent shockwaves through both fans and the industry. Finn Hudson wasn't just a lead character. He was the emotional center of the show. His journey, awkward, hopeful, and deeply human, grounded a series that often leaned into big musical moments and heightened drama. The show paused production. There was no attempt to rush forward. Instead, they created a tribute episode, The Quarterback. What made that episode stand out wasn't plot. In fact, the cause of Finn's death was never explicitly stated. The focus was grief. Raw, unfiltered grief. The cast wasn't just performing. They were mourning someone they had worked with for years. That reality came through in every scene. It blurred the line between fiction and real life in a way few shows ever do. John Ritter as Paul Hennessy, 8 Simple Rules. John Ritter's sudden death in 2003 forced a sitcom to completely rethink itself. Paul Hennessy was the heart of 8 Simple Rules. His comedic timing, warmth, and relatability anchored the show. Instead of recasting, the writers made a bold choice. They wrote his death into the story. The tone of the series shifted almost overnight. What had been a light family comedy became something more grounded, more reflective. The episodes that followed explored how a family deals with loss, not in a dramatic, over-the-top way, but in the quiet, complicated moments that come with grief. It worked because it didn't try to replace what was lost. Luke Perry as Fred Andrews, Riverdale. When Luke Perry passed away in 2019, Riverdale took its time before addressing it on screen. Fred Andrews was more than just Archie's father. He represented stability in a show often filled with chaos. The tribute episode portrayed his death as the result of an off-screen accident. But the focus wasn't on the event itself. It was on who Fred was: kind, steady, reliable. The episode gave characters space to reflect, to remember, and to process. By not rushing, the show allowed the tribute to feel sincere rather than reactive. Nancy Marchand as Livia Soprano, The Sopranos. Nancy Marchand's death came at a time when her character, Livia Soprano, was still central to the story. The show used a combination of existing footage and early digital techniques to complete her final appearance. After that, Livia was written out as having died. It was one of the first times technology was used in this way, raising questions that still exist today about how far shows should go in recreating performances. Andy Whitfield as Spartacus. Spartacus, not every situation leads to the character being written out. After Andy Whitfield's death, Spartacus chose to recast the role with Liam McIntyre. The decision was controversial. Whitfield's performance had defined the character, and some felt it couldn't be replicated. But the story was larger than one character arc. The show continued, balancing respect for Whitfield with the need to complete the narrative. It's a reminder that there isn't always a single right choice. Soap operas where reality and fiction collide. Soap operas operate on a different scale. Characters exist for decades. Storylines evolve over years. And because of that, the impact of losing an actor can be even more profound. Kristoff St. John as Neil Winters, The Young and the Restless. When Kristoff St. John died in 2019, the loss extended far beyond the show. Neil Winters had been part of Genoa City for decades. He wasn't just a character, he was a cornerstone of the series. The show chose to write his death into the story. What followed were tribute episodes that brought back former cast members and focused heavily on family, legacy, and memory. It felt less like a storyline and more like a collective farewell. For many viewers, it was deeply personal. Jean Cooper as Catherine Chancellor, The Young and the Restless. Jean Cooper's passing marked the end of one of the most iconic eras in daytime television. Catherine Chancellor wasn't just important to the show, she helped define it. Instead of recasting, the writers chose to focus on her legacy. Characters reflected on her influence, her relationships, and the mark she left on their lives. It was a quieter approach, but one that carried emotional weight. Film franchises forced to adapt. Television isn't the only medium affected by these losses. Film franchises, especially long-running ones, face similar challenges. Paul Walker as Brian O'Connor, Furious 7. Paul Walker's death during the production of Furious 7 created an unprecedented situation. Instead of writing Brian O'Connor out through death, the filmmakers used CGI and body doubles to complete the film. They then gave the character a peaceful exit. The final scene, where Brian drives away, became one of the most emotional moments in the franchise. It allowed the character to live on even as the actor was gone. Heath Ledger as the Joker, The Dark Knight. Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker was so definitive that the character couldn't simply be continued. Rather than recasting within that universe, the franchise moved forward without revisiting the character directly. Sometimes, absence becomes its own kind of tribute. When shows choose a different path. Not every production chooses to end the character. Recasting. In long-running shows, especially soaps, recasting is sometimes necessary, but it's always noticeable. Audiences compare performances. They look for differences. It changes the experience, writing the character away. Some shows avoid finality by sending a character off screen. They move away, travel, or simply stop appearing. It keeps the door open, but it can also feel incomplete. What audiences see is only part of the story. Behind every decision is a cast and crew dealing with real grief. Actors are asked to perform scenes that mirror their own emotions. Writers have to balance storytelling with sensitivity. Directors guide performances that are often deeply personal. In many cases, the authenticity of these episodes comes from the fact that the emotions are not entirely fictional. There's something uniquely powerful about these situations. When a character dies because the actor died, the boundary between fiction and reality disappears. The grief on screen reflects real loss. Viewers aren't just watching a story unfold, they're participating in a shared moment of remembrance. As technology advances, these situations are becoming more complicated. With CGI and AI, it's now possible to recreate performances. But that raises questions. Should it be done? Where's the line between tribute and exploitation? Some argue that continuing a character honors the work. Others believe that letting the character go shows respect. There's no clear answer, and the conversation is only just beginning. In recent years, there's been a noticeable shift. Studios are more cautious, more thoughtful. They take time before making decisions. They consult with families. They listen to audiences. Social media has made reactions immediate and visible, pushing creators toward more authentic responses. The result is storytelling that feels more human. These moments remind us why stories matter. Characters may be fictional, but the people who bring them to life are not. When an actor dies, something irreplaceable is lost. Sometimes the most honest thing a story can do is acknowledge that loss. Not with spectacle, not with dramatic twists, but with a simple human goodbye.